You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
Elections, as they say, have consequences, and our most recent presidential election, more consequential than most. One of the consequences this week, today, as I sit down to record the top of the show, is watching the president-elect of the United States wage Twitter war on Meryl Streep. Meghan McCain jumped in to assist Donald Trump in waging war on Meryl Streep, saying that Streep's speech, and others like it at Golden Globes, are the reason why Donald Trump won the election. Donald Trump winning the election isn't something that Meghan McCain opposed. Meghan McCain was for Donald Trump, wanted Donald Trump to win the election, in part because she just couldn't support Hillary Clinton because Bill Clinton cheated on his wife. Cheated and lied. Bill Clinton, to quote Meghan McCain, cheated on his marriage vows. Meghan McCain, of course, is the daughter of John McCain's second wife, Cindy. John McCain started to fuck his second wife, the woman who had become his second wife, Cindy, while he was still married to his first wife. So Meghan McCain owes her very existence to an adulterous affair, which makes Meghan McCain throwing stones at the Clintons and their marriage just a little galling. Sorry about the Meghan McCain aside, not actually what I want to talk about. I want to talk about elections have consequences. Sometimes in the U.S., they have fewer consequences than they might by dint of our gridlocked by design political system, all these checks and balances, and that prevents parties from perhaps delivering on the promises they make to rile up their base. And this can instill in people cynicism. As Nathaniel Frank pointed out in his terrific book that you should probably pick up and read if you haven't read already, I am rereading it now, What's the Matter with Kansas? Republicans promise a human life amendment to ban abortion. When they run, when they're elected, they deliver a capital gains tax cut. It is the ongoing, never-ending bait and switch that the GOP engages. And the GOP can say, we couldn't give you a ban on abortion because, those rhinos, those Republicans in name only, those liberal Republicans who are now extinct, they blocked us in cahoots with the Democrats. We couldn't get it through because of the Democrats. Well, now we're about to see what happens when Republicans control everything. And they have the power to deliver on their promises to their base. And that is why this election perhaps more consequential than most, and not just for Meryl Streep. The GOP-dominated Congress, which has already been sworn in, is already hard at work at repealing Obamacare, much to the consternation of Trump voters in red states where a higher percentage of people actually are on Obamacare. They're going to lose their health insurance. And now Republicans are rolling out defunding Planned Parenthood, which is going to disproportionately impact poor women, white working class women, even all over the country. Planned Parenthood is popular, kind of like Meryl Streep is popular. Planned Parenthood and Meryl Streep, both a lot more popular than Donald Trump, certainly both a lot more popular than Meghan fucking McCain. But the Republican Party is going to have to deliver on this, these unpopular promises, the promises they've been making to their base for 30, 40 years that they could never deliver on because of the goddamn Democrats and the rhinos, which are now extinct. They're in a position to deliver on. And it looks like they're going to do it. Looks like they're going to deliver on it. And then we shall see. We shall see what happens when that shit flies through that fan, because the GOP is not in a position anymore, and I don't think they're inclined anymore to deny their rabid base what they've been promising the rabid base for decades, which is going to make this a much more consequential election for all of us as Americans, and also, I think in the long run, a consequential election for the GOP. Quick note, I take no delight in the prospect of Trump voting Obamacare-dependent people, voters all over this country, losing their health insurance. And, as people are pointing out, some of them will lose their lives as a consequence. I am a squishy liberal. I take no delight in the prospect of Trump voters who may rely on Planned Parenthood not having access to those services anymore. I'm a liberal. I want those services to exist for everyone, regardless of their political position or who they voted for. I am incredibly concerned about the destruction of Planned Parenthood at the hands of the woman-hating, sex-hating GOP. lives will be lost as a consequence. Not just the lives of Trump voters, lives I value as well, but the lives of liberals and progressives and people of color and queers. It is one thing to promise your rabid base something that you expect you will never have to deliver on for fear of alienating the majority of the rest of the country, the majority of voters. It's another thing to actually be in the position to deliver on that promise. And they are now in a position to deliver. And we shall see. We shall see who wins this in the long run. I do not think it is the GOP. Another saying people are kicking around: what happens when the dog catches the car? All right, coming up today on the show, we have tons of your questions. And on the Magnum Savage Lovecast, we have Amp from the popular YouTube sex ed and kink ed web series What's the Safe Word, here to talk about breath play and breath control and how appropriate at a moment when the whole country is collectively holding its breath. The Magnum, for those of you who have just joined the Savage Lovecast family, is the subscription Savage Lovecast. It is twice as long. There are no ads. You can go to www.savagelovecast.com for information about subscribing to the Magnum Edition and supporting the Savage Lovecast. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by going to casper.com/savagelove and entering the promo code SAVAGELOVE. Support for Savage Love comes from Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. When it comes to the big decision of choosing a mortgage lender, work with one that has your best interests in mind. Use Rocket Mortgage for a transparent, trustworthy home loan process that's completely online at quickenloans.com/savage. We want to thank Audible.com for their support of the Savage Lovecast. For a free 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. My name's Raleigh, and I have a question for you. A good high school friend of mine came out to us when we were all in college. This was probably about 10 years ago, and part of his very long email coming out as gay was a promise that he was going to go pray away the gay at some retreat in the desert somewhere. So he went off the grid for about 5 or 6 years, and very recently came back into our lives. And we're all very happy to be in communication with him again. We've missed him. We've missed hearing from him and having him in our lives. But how can we be supportive while not being supportive of his resolve to not be gay anymore? Essentially, I want to be able to welcome him back as a friend, but not support his desire to, once he gets his career sorted out, go, quote unquote, church hunting for a bride. So that's my question, really. How do I welcome him back and encourage him to be who he is deep down? The other element of it is that the positive aspect of his sojourn into the desert was that he was able to come to grips with some childhood abuse that he suffered at the hands of his family. So I don't want to discount that, but neither me nor any of our other friends believe in his praying away the gay. That's clearly not a thing.
You might want to sit your friend down in front of a computer and Google Exodus International. From 1976, when it was founded, until 2013, when it shut its doors, Exodus International, which at one point had 250 ministries across the country, was the biggest ex-gay, pray away the gay, reparative therapy, bullshit, horse shit, quackery shit organization in the world. And in 2013, they closed their doors because Exodus International, the people whose livelihoods, people who made money pimping this shit, even they had to admit after decades of slogging away that this didn't fucking work. This was some years after Alan Chambers, then the head of Exodus International, said that the opposite of homosexuality wasn't heterosexuality. He famously observed the opposite of homosexuality was holiness. So Exodus, which for years had told its acolytes, its marks, that if they just prayed hard enough and they really meant it and they were totes sincere, Jesus would turn them straight, had to admit in the end that that didn't work. And that was a pretty good scam, because you tell somebody that, well, the effectiveness, the efficacy of our treatment depends on the sincerity that you bring to the table. So if it didn't work, it's not our fault. It's not Jesus's fault. It's your fault. You didn't pray hard enough. You really didn't mean it. You were still harboring a secret desire to be a sinful cocksucker. It was nice work while you could get it. It was nice work while you could fool people, but eventually the gig ran out. That doesn't mean there aren't still organizations out there and still churches out there preying on queer people like your friend, preying on people, preying, Preying, preying on people like your friend who believe or would like to believe that they can Pray the Gay away. But it doesn't fucking work. And I promise you it didn't work for your friend. And I promise you he knows it. And when he desperately tries to concentrate when he's jacking off on Dana Carvey's church lady, it doesn't fucking work. His mind will drift all on its own to the ass and cock and man tits and pits that he wishes to crawl into bed with. So what are your responsibilities to him as a friend? Well, would you be friends with someone who, say, ran down a street one day and jumped some unsuspecting woman and beat the shit out of her? Would you be that guy's friend? Probably not. You would look at his actions and say, well, this person is not nice. That's not something that a nice person does. And I want to have not perfect friends, but friends who, when they harm other people or hurt other people, it isn't an intentional malicious act. And what your friend is talking about doing here is the sexual, emotional, marital equivalent of jumping some poor unsuspecting woman on the street and beating the fuck out of her. It's just, instead of it being over in a moment, his plan is to jump some poor unsuspecting woman in church, propose to her, marry her, and then spend the next 30, 40 years beating her up emotionally, sexually, maritally. Because people who've been married to gay men who were in the closet, gay men who believed Jesus had prayed away the gay, or gay men who thought they could never come out, so they had no choice. And, some gay men do marry under duress in societies and circumstances where they have no other option. But women who are in those marriages are not fulfilled and often spend decades wondering what's wrong with them. And it is painful and it is damaging psychologically. And if it's bundled up with the Jesus shit, spiritually damaging. And I don't think you want to play any part in that. I don't think you want to be complicit in your friend's plan to spend the next 30, 40 years beating the shit out of some poor unsuspecting woman. And I think you should tell him that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this is the sort of actions that your friend is about to undertake, that he has telegraphed to you that he's about to undertake, that require you as a decent human being to break with your friend, to tell your friend, no, you cannot be his friend if he's going to live a lie, and not just, live a chaste life, not just tell himself he's ex-gay because he's not putting his dick in boys, but to live a lie that then is weaponized and destroys someone else's life in the process, that you are not going to be complicit in that. So you cannot be his friend. You will not go on double dates with him. You will not welcome him and his poor duped girlfriend into your social circle, where you will then be required to, by being his friend in a sense, vouch for and therefore lie for him, that you're not going to be a party to this. So friendship over, that you aren't going to be friends with a messy Jesus addict for the same reasons you wouldn't be friends with a messy meth addict.
Hey, Dan. I'm a gay guy from the East Coast, and I have a question about thirds and really the end of a trouble relationship. So backstory is my husband and I invited a third, who is one of my dear friends, into our relationship. Had a good run for about 6 months or 7 or 8 months or so, but eventually it didn't work out. Things kind of were tense between my husband and our third, and ultimately, our third was just not someone that I had necessarily wanted to be in a romantic relationship with, but he is still my best friend. Basically, at this point in time, they had a conflict that ended the throuple relationship, and now I'm kind of in a bind. They're not reconciled. They haven't reconciled. My friend was going to write a letter, explaining his feelings and apologizing for, the situation that kind of precipitated the end of it. But he just has never done so. He hasn't followed through. I think he just is avoiding conflict at this point in time, and it's not really important to him. And my husband's kind of come down and made the judgment that he's not going to do anything to repair it either. So I'm stuck in a bind because, on the one hand, I have my best friend who I hang out with all the time and I see a lot, and I have my husband who I spend time with all the time and a lot. But I can't have them together. and it's kind of getting to the point where it's driving me crazy. And I'm trying to figure out a way to make it so that they can be in the same place and not have it be awkward. Do you have any advice? I was thinking I was going to try and basically broker a peace treaty for all intents and purposes and just sit them down and mediate between them. But is that going to have any effect?
Gays are usually pretty good at being friends or salvaging friendships out of romantic relationships that ended or ran their course, even ones that sometimes blew up pretty spectacularly. But those friendships tend to take root or re-root after a nice long cooling off period, after you don't have to see each other for a while or really think about each other for a while. Your presence, of course, in your husband's life, which is a given, and in your friend's life, calls the question for both these guys. They're still kind of wrapped up in each other. They still have this connection through you. So you're just going to have to force the issue. You're going to have to put it in your husband's head that you're still, as I'm sure he knows, hanging out with your friend. And you're going to have to tell your friend that being in a relationship with you, not a romantic one, not a sexual one, just a friendship with you, means being at some point in the future in relationship with, a friendship with, bank shot, the husband of a friend, bank shot friendship, in that relationship with your husband. And they are going to have to learn how to be in the same room together again. You say that your third is someone that you didn't want to be necessarily in a sexual relationship with. So I'm guessing that it was your husband or your friend that initiated this, that maybe there was an intense sexual connection and a passion between them, and you were just kind of along for the ride and open to it. So there's going to be more heat in their breakup than in your breakup with your friend, because you were never that invested in him romantically, sexually, passionately. You were more invested in him in a friendly way. So let the embers cool. Let your husband and your friend have a good 6 months, 8 months without you pushing them into the same room together. But it's going to be awkward. You can't avoid that awkwardness, at least the first time. It is going to be awkward. And there's no avoiding the awkwardness. Awkwardness just has to be slogged through. You have to push through it like swimming through a pool full of Jell-O. And you will come out the other side and you will feel less awkward once you live with the awkwardness and push through and move through the awkwardness. But there's no avoiding it. There's no magic words that you can say. There's nothing your friend can put in that letter to your husband that he should write that is going to make the awkwardness go away. It's going to disappear the awkwardness. That's going to make that first meeting feel less awkward and forced. It's going to be forced. And you just have to let it be forced. And it's going to be awkward. You just have to let it be awkward. And you know what'll be less awkward? The second time. And even less awkward the third time you all see each other. I would encourage you on those first and second times that maybe it's not just the three of you. Don't have an intimate little dinner, that you have some friends over, that you have a party, that you each, all three of you, have people that you can pivot to and have conversations with. And also, it requires you when there are others around to not want to be the problem, not want to be the problem child in this X-thruple. So each of you will make an effort while there are others around to be perhaps more civil and chummy and friendly than you might feel like being at that first meeting. So a dinner party, 8 or 10 guys, or 8 or 10 friends, not just guys, and the boyfriend and the husband too. Support for the Savage Lovecast comes from Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. When it comes to the big decision of choosing a mortgage lender, it is important to work with someone you can trust and someone who has your best interests in mind. With Rocket Mortgage, you'll get a transparent online process that gives you the confidence to make an informed decision. Don't waste time searching through stacks of paperwork. With Rocket Mortgage, you can securely share your financial info to get a mortgage approval in minutes. You can even adjust the rate and length of your loan in real time to make sure you get the mortgage solution that's right for you. Whether you're looking to buy a home or refinance your existing mortgage, you can lift the burden of getting a home loan with Rocket Mortgage. Skip the bank, skip the waiting, and go completely online at quickenloans.com/savage. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030.
Hey, Dan, long-time listener and reader, first-time caller. I think I was raped by my, I'm guessing, ex-girlfriend tonight. I don't know. What constitutes females raping males? I was passed out drunk, and I woke up to a blowjob, which usually I'm fine with the alarm clock blowjobs, but In this instance, I wasn't, and she proceeded to mount me, and I was trying to do dead hands, and she kept putting them on her boobies, and I was just like, no, I don't want to do that. But I didn't see that verbally. I was just kind of shocked by what was happening. Was I raped, or am I just being a dick about this?
This question is a trap. There is really no way for me to answer this question without getting into worlds of trouble. I am now going to attempt to tiptoe through this minefield. Were you raped? You don't say, you didn't leave a callback number, so I can't call you back. You don't say how long you've been together with this person. Those details, I think, matter. If you have been in a long-term relationship with someone, you exist, as I have said controversially in the past, in a state of implied consent or ongoing consent. Terry, my husband, can come up to me and grab my dick. Terry, my husband, I can come up behind him when he's washing dishes or whatever the fuck and put my hands on his ass. If I did that to some stranger at the gym, that would be sexual assault. If I do that to my husband at the sink without his verbal consent, it is not sexual assault. We exist in a state of ongoing consent. Consent that can be withdrawn if I touch his ass at the sink and he says, knock it off, not now. He shrugs me off because he's not in the mood to be touched, because his focus is on the dishes and he doesn't want me focusing on his ass at that moment. I do withdraw. That is my responsibility. He has withdrawn consent. You know, he has flipped the switch and we are in a state of consent is required. Active, verbal, yes, is required. So, yeah, if I woke up in the middle of the night, if I went to bed drunk and I woke up in the middle of the night and my dick was in my husband's mouth or his was in mine, I don't think that I would feel in that moment as if I had been raped. I would feel in that moment as if Terry was acting on the bedrock consent that exists pretty much at all times in our relationship because we are so comfortable with each other and we know each other so well, and this is allowed. And it sounds like this sort of thing might have been allowed in your relationship too. You say that this perhaps has happened in the past, or if it had happened in the past, or it may have happened that you would have been okay with it, but at this moment you were not okay with it. But you didn't say anything. You did dead hands, which I guess are like jazz hands but dead. I've never heard of dead hands before in this particular context. And she mounted you, and she continued to attempt to initiate, and you laid there, I guess, with your dick in or near her, and you getting aroused. Yes, it is totally possible for women to sexually assault men, and men will sometimes get aroused as they are being sexually assaulted. It's a physiological response. Same thing as women often feel deeply and terribly conflicted and struggle with shame over the fact that they may become physically aroused during a sexual assault. It's something that really complicates the aftermath of a sexual assault for some women, because they don't understand that this is their body acting to protect itself. This is a physiological response. They are not aroused. Their body is kicking into gear to protect them from tissue damage, from physical damage. Same thing for dudes. Dudes can become sexually aroused during an assault. Women can absolutely assault women. But you're asking me to tell you whether or not this was rape. And I think that, yeah, by some MRI definition, perhaps, of rape, that this qualifies. And if you want to call it rape and you want to end your relationship with your girlfriend for this reason, that you can storm out in high dudgeon and self-righteously accuse her of having sexually assaulted you, I suppose. I suppose it rises to the level of the technical definition, perhaps, of a sexual assault or a rape. I wouldn't, under a similar circumstance, define it that way. I would chalk it up to confusion. This was somebody that you were in a relationship with, somebody that you say that this kind of initiation in the past, I can't remember if it has occurred, or you just speculate that if it did occur under when you were feeling differently about it, would have been all right with you. So it happened at this time, and this time it wasn't all right with you. So I would ask you, ultimately you're the one who has to decide how you feel about this experience and how you're going to label it and understand it and process it and what that means for you going forward with this particular girlfriend. But I would challenge you to ask yourself some questions. If indeed you two have engaged in exactly this kind of behavior in the past, your girlfriend initiating when you are unconscious, surprising you with a blowjob in this way, and it was okay with you, it might be understandable that she assumed that this was okay with you. Particularly after she began, and perhaps you became aroused, and then she mounted you, and the only data that you were delivering to her about how you felt about this were dead hands. And it's understandable that she might have misinterpreted that. So maybe she gets a pass. Or maybe she doesn't. Maybe she goes to jail. Maybe you call the police. on your late night, drunken, passed out, blowjob giving girlfriend. And I can only speak for myself here, but if this exact set of circumstances had gone down between me and my husband, if Terry had done to me exactly what your girlfriend had done to you, we would have a conversation about what was awkward and uncomfortable and unpleasant about that. We would even have a conversation about how I felt violated. But I wouldn't myself call it rape, and I wouldn't myself end my relationship over it. You get to make your own choices. Audible has an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, comedy, and more. Audiobooks are great to listen to when you're driving, on the subway or bus, doing chores around the house, or at the gym. For our listeners, Audible is offering a free 30-day trial. Just go to audible.com/savage to browse their unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title and start listening. It's that easy. One audiobook or a few audiobooks you might want to consider for your free trial: Carrie Fisher's Wishful Drinking, narrated by Carrie Fisher; Carrie Fisher's Shockaholic, narrated by Carrie Fisher; and Carrie Fisher's The Princess Diarist, narrated by Carrie Fisher and Billy Lord. We miss her already. She's gone, but she left behind not just iconic performances, but really, really terrific books. If you haven't yet read Carrie Fisher's writing or had it read to you by Carrie Fisher, why don't you take advantage of Audible's terrific offer and get to know Carrie Fisher a little bit better? Once again, for that free 30-day trial, go to audible.com/savage. That's audible.com/savage.
Hi, Dan. I am a 33-year-old woman from the Northwest, and my husband and I have a question for you. We've been swinging for about 2 years, which has been great. We met this woman a few years ago, and then about last year, after her divorce, we started sleeping with her, and everything was great, no drama or anything, but she also happened to be our son's preschool teacher, and that didn't seem to be much of an issue either. Anyway, about 6 months ago, we decided that we were going to move on, and she moved on, and no real issue with that either. Everything was fine until this week, when she decided that due to a new man she was dating, she needed to atone for all of the sins that she has done in the past and can't see us anymore and kicked our son out of preschool. She won't talk to us about any of this, and so now we're kind of stuck with what to tell people because we are not out with this. We live in a very small town. Yeah, we're just really kind of betrayed and confused, and I guess we need to know, what our rights are as far as what we can do about this. We don't want to send him back to her, obviously, but, yeah, we just don't know what to do. So any advice that you have would be great.
You ask what your rights are in this situation, and I'm not sure what to tell you. Perhaps you could sue, but if you sue, you're going to out yourself in your small community, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there probably isn't any established case law involving children being thrown out of preschools by women who were in polyamorous triads briefly with that kid's parents. I'm going to just guess that there's not a lot of circuit courts that have weighed in on that yet. So I don't think the courts are where you need to go. I don't think this is a rights case that you can press in court. You could perhaps implore this woman to see what she's doing for exactly what it is. She's atoning for what she thinks is a sin, for one sin, by committing another. She is not punishing you or not punishing herself. She's punishing this innocent child who had nothing to do with these adult relationships, with these intimate relationships. How did that kid feel when he was thrown out of his preschool, when he was torn from his friends because of drama between these adults that he is completely unaware of? Probably terrible. This is the person who has been wronged here, not you guys, not this woman, not her new boyfriend. This poor child is the victim in this entire circumstance. You guys all needed to suck it up and be the grown-ups and not let this impact the life of this child, and that's not what happened. And I'm not blaming your feet, you and your husband. It's this woman. She has punished this child for her own sins. How does that absolve her of her sins. It doesn't. It only compounds her sins. So you could go to her and make a sinny, Christy, Jesus-y, religious-y case for not throwing your kid out, but would you trust this woman around your kid anymore? Would you want your kid in her care? Probably not. So you're all going to have to move the fuck on, and you're going to have to make other arrangements for your kid. And if anyone asks you why your kid left this preschool, you can lie. You have my permission to lie your ass off and just say it wasn't the right fit for him and we pulled him out of the preschool. And if she's running around telling people she kicked the kid out, then you call her and say, if you keep telling people that you kicked our kid out of your preschool, we're going to have to tell people why you kicked our kid out of our preschool. And I don't think you want that. So let's all just leave each other alone and fucking drop it. And you let us say we pulled our kid out of your preschool. Okay, thanks, bye. Don't want to have to call your new boyfriend and tell him what a slut you are. You could go there, I think. You can go DEFCON 5 to protect your kid, which you need to do. And in the future, and swingers or wannabe swingers out there, take note, best to err on the side of no overlap between the people you're fucking and authority roles in the lives of your children. Don't fuck their teachers. Don't fuck the people who run their schools. Don't fuck their priests or whoever the fuck else has an important role in the life of your child. Probably not a great idea to start fucking that person, because if it goes south, that can negatively impact your child. And you need to, at all times, not just when your pants are around your ankles, at all times, protect your children. This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Casper. Casper is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the cost. Casper is revolutionizing the mattress industry by cutting the cost of dealing with resellers and showrooms and passing those savings directly onto you, the consumer, and the sleeper. Casper's mattress is an obsessively engineered mattress at a very fair price. Casper is made of supportive memory foams for a sleep service with just the right sink and just the right bounce. Plus, its breathable design sleeps cool to help you regulate your temperature through the night. Terry and I sleep on a Casper mattress every night, and you can too. Not our mattress. Well, not all of you, at any rate, but you can sleep on the same mattress, sort of, that Terry and I sleep on. You can buy it easily online and completely risk-free. Casper understands the importance of truly trying on a mattress that in all reality you will spend a third of your life on. Casper offers free delivery and painless returns within a 100-day period, so you don't have to lie down in a showroom. Casper's mattresses are made in the USA, free shipping and returns to US and Canada. And you can save an additional $50 toward a mattress purchase by going to casper.com/savagelove and entering the promo code SAVAGELOVE. That's a great mattress, $50 off. Just go to casper.com/savagelove and promo code SAVAGELOVE. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, Dan. I'm a 24-year-old pansexual lady living in Arizona, calling about a long-term predicament I've been in since I started dating in my teenage years. I should start off by saying that I have an alcoholic, heroin, and every other drug under the sun addict father. He wasn't present pretty much my whole life because he was told he'd have to be sober if he was going to be around me. This, along with the fact that I enjoy being present and many other reasons, have led me to be sober my whole life. This has affected my dating life intensely. I'm fine when starting to date a new person, but as we get closer, I have almost a PTSD response to them drinking alcohol or doing other substances. It's to a point where I get completely out of my control. I feel extreme anxiety and fear, nauseousness. I'll shut down or run away. I feel out of control and terrified. And even when they're not an alcoholic, I tell my partners about the reaction and that they don't need to stop drinking for me. This is my stuff. I don't want to be resented for stopping their partying, and I don't want to be controlling. A lot of times partners have offered to stop drinking because it doesn't matter enough to them. And later I'll find them drinking and lying to me about it. And that hurts more than anything. So I've tried dating only sober people so I don't have to deal with that problem. It's really fucking hard. I'm young. I go out dancing all the time. I live in a small town. I also belong to an incredibly artistic, beautiful community of musicians and punks who share my queer relationship values and political values. That means a lot to me, but in this small community in town, it's hard to find anybody, let alone people who are sober. This has led me to feel like I'm unlovable, I'm undesirable, I'm flawed. I've tried to stop carrying and go to therapy or Al-Anon, but it hasn't made this predicament go away. Instead, I find myself in these non-attached dating and sex relationships, so I don't get to the point where they can hurt me like that. So my question is, what do I do? Do I date non-sober people and just try to deal with it? Do I look for other sober people? Do I just not date for a while? Something needs to change. This is really pretty miserable.
I want to highlight 5 words that you said, 5 words that came out of your mouth that I think need to be your mantra. This is me, my stuff. This is your problem, and you need to take some responsibility for it. And it sounds like you've been very thoughtful about it. It sounds like you've taken responsibility for it up to a point. You need to get into perhaps a cognitive behavioral therapy program where you can really work on this in a pragmatic way, work on tools that you can use to help you with this. You also need to recognize that if you do have indeed PTSD from your childhood and from your father being addicted to everything under the sun, that it's exposure that helps people with PTSD to stop having panic reactions to their triggers. So you don't want to wall yourself off from the world of people who drink and perhaps can socially use drugs and use drugs responsibly, which are most people in the world. You want to, in a controlled way, encounter that and learn how to accept it and not have panic attacks about it. It might help if you told yourself every day that addiction cost you a parent. It was addiction that cost you a relationship with your father. It wasn't beer or pot or heroin or whatever else all by itself. It was addiction. Your father had addiction issues. It is possible for people to consume alcohol, pot, even some other drugs responsibly without being addicts. I really feel like at 24, it's time for you to reframe your thinking about this. And rather than say to yourself, am I going to date sober people or non-sober people? I think that kind of sober, not sober language or way of framing it is loaded. And there's something about it that implies that the non-sober person is not just non-sober, but an addict, that there's sobriety and then there's addiction. And I don't think you want to think of it that way. You're going to date people who use drugs and alcohol responsibly. You are never going to date somebody who's a mess. You're never going to date somebody who has a drug or alcohol problem, but you're going to stop thinking that all people who use drugs and alcohol have a problem. They don't. Or you're going to date people who don't use drugs and alcohol. And perhaps it might be easier for you to find somebody who doesn't use drugs and alcohol. Maybe not because they're sober or in recovery, not that that isn't a good option for you, but because it doesn't do anything for them. There are people out there who don't use drugs and alcohol because they don't enjoy the feeling. And you might want to search them out. But that's really going to limit your dating pool. And I think you should be open to all. And I think some time with a therapist who specializes in CBT, not the Savage Love kind of CBT we've talked about a lot, but cognitive behavioral therapy, not to be confused with cock and ball torture. Find a therapist who specializes in that kind of CBT. Get to work on some limited exposure therapy to your triggers around drugs and alcohol, and get to work on what you described very accurately as your stuff.
Hi, Dan. So an interesting situation presented itself at work with me and a coworker. The coworker, who is married with kids, made a pretty significant move on me in the middle of the day after no influence from alcohol. I don't have any feelings toward this coworker. I'm in a committed relationship and don't think of him in any way like that. And our relationship up to this point was strictly professional. We go on a lot of business trips, and I work with him in a close capacity, but I'm nice, not flirtatious. He, after making this move on me, wherein which he tried to kiss me, he told me that he'd never felt so connected with someone in his life, and I again said that I didn't feel that way. The kicker is that I have to go on a trip with him and one other person next week. This trip is, we're doing trainings and presentations, and it requires us to work pretty closely. We're obviously going on all the same flights. We're staying in the same hotels, and I'm wondering what your advice is on how to handle the situation. It's substantially awkward right now, and he's told me that obviously he feels very bad, but he's also wants to talk about it, and I told him I'm not uncomfortable, or I'm completely uncomfortable with that, and I'm not going to do that right now. And he's basically told me that he's feeling very, very sad emotionally. So what do I do? Do I go on this business trip? Do I suck it up and go and pretend like everything's fine, or do I make up some excuse and not go?
If not going on the trip won't negatively impact your career, if it's not going to get you in trouble with your employers, if it's not going to disappoint the higher ups, your bosses, if it's not going to cost you an opportunity to make a professional contact or meet up with people you've networked with that could help you in the future, then don't go. If that's an option, you can sidestep all of this agitation and drama, because I guarantee you this mopey, boundaryless idiot, once you're in another city, once you're in a hotel together, once a couple of drinks are in him, is not going to respect your boundaries any better than he did that day in your workplace. So yeah, if you don't have to go, don't go. If it's not going to harm you not to go, don't go. But if it's going to harm you in any way professionally, not to go. If it's going to make you look foolish in front of your bosses, then go to HR, go to your higher ups, create a digital record or professional record now of what happened, and say you handled it and you're just concerned that this is a problem. And maybe the person who shouldn't go on this trip is him, not you, him. So go to HR if that's an option and file a complaint. There are a lot of women in your circumstance, and not just women, men who've been hit on inappropriately by people in their offices, sometimes by other men, but also sometimes by women, who have just toughed it out because it was a choice between losing that opportunity or annoying the higher ups or creating a fuss that was also going to annoy the higher ups. And there are people who, in your circumstance, have sucked it up and packed mace. Also an option for you. But I would rank these options in order of preference for 1, don't go if you don't need to go. If you don't want to go, if it's not going to hurt you not to go, don't go. 2, go, but go to the higher ups and tell them that you're concerned about being alone with him based on this prior incident. Or 3, go to him and say, look, we're going. If you hit on me, I will file a complaint. I have written everything down. I have spoken to someone in HR. And if you do anything inappropriate, it will be your job. And then go.
Hi, I'm 31, female, living in Pittsburgh. I've always used the word pussy and loved it. And now I'm having a visceral negative reaction whenever the word pussy is used. My pussy dries up, turns into the Sahara Desert. So I need a new word when my fiance and I are getting down to business. Never been a huge fan of the words twat or cunt in a sexual context. And while I'm not scared of saying vagina, it just doesn't feel sexual. So I'm wondering, A, if other women are having this reaction, and B, like what they're choosing to call it now. So maybe this could be one of those things that you turn to the listeners for some brainstorming.
I'm going to toss out vajayjay, the Oprah-ism from probably 15 years ago now, and front hole before we toss it to listeners for their suggestions, before we have our brainstorming session. I would, however, caller, challenge you. You've rejected out of hand, right out of the gate, pussy, twat, and cunt, which I think are 3 great words that I know women who use them in a sexual context that makes them feel empowered, and they love those words and embrace them and makes them feel sexy and hot. But you've rejected them, the big 3. And I can't imagine that there's a twee alternative. Perhaps some of our listeners in other countries who speak other languages can toss out some, who knows what they call it in German or Italian when they're being affectionate. I imagine it would sound prettier in Italian than it would in German. But I would challenge you, caller, on whether or not your discomfort with every single word that might be available to you doesn't betray some larger discomfort with female genitalia, with your own genitalia. I'm always mystified when people are uncomfortable with every word to describe, for instance, in gay land. I've met gay guys who don't like to be called gay, who don't like to be called homosexual, who don't like to be called inverts, which is a lovely old term for us, who are uncomfortable with every descriptor. Queer, no. LGBT, no. And the more I got to know guys who felt this way, the more of a sense I got that they were just uncomfortable with being gay. And so I would challenge you to sit with for just a minute while everyone out there brainstorms and calls in and shares other words, whether or not your discomfort with every single perhaps available term for pussy doesn't betray some discomfort with pussy. Quick update. One of the tech-savvy at-risk youth just tossed out there, of course, that pussy was ruined by Donald Trump. There is now an association between Trump and pussy that makes pussy squicky. I would encourage people to embrace cunt myself, but it's not my genital, it's not my word, but I like cunt, but you don't. So folks out there listening, what's the word that you like, so long as it isn't pussy, cunt, twat, vajayjay, or front hole? Give us some options for this caller.
Hey, Dan. I was just calling in response to that poor woman who has the 11th-month-old and the asshole husband. And I just wanted to say that I think you and Nancy are 100% correct, that she should absolutely get on a plane and get the fuck out of there and go back to her family, because you can't raise a baby by yourself, especially when you have another set of hands that are as capable as you to hold that child, especially in the middle of the night. And if he can't do it, she needs to find somebody who can. And a great person to do that, if you have that, is, your own mother or father or person who takes care of you. And I think that the grand gesture is a great way to kind of knock some sense into somebody who doesn't seem to have a whole lot to begin with.
Hey, this is for the woman whose husband is getting hand jobs and not helping out. The advice is great, but don't go home. Stick it out. Don't let him off the hook. Don't make your parents and your family deal with what you should be dealing with unless you're at your wit's end and absolutely need the support that you're not getting. Make him do it. Make him get up in the night. My wife breastfed. We did it. And it was exhausting, and she still did more work. But even with working and getting up in the morning, it still takes two. If you're listening, dude, you can do it. And you fucking have to. All right? And you also have to help with all of the other stuff that needs to happen around the house. Because making milk, recovering from having a baby, all of that is a lot of work and physically taxing on your body, your metabolism, and your mind. So be the parent.
Hi, this is for the new mother in episode 532. I'm so glad Nancy recommended that her husband start helping with the night feeding, but I just wanted to add that pumping is not the only way for that to happen. New mothers are always told that it's all or nothing when it comes to breastfeeding, but that's just not true. Formula is your friend. Pumping is exhausting, and if she doesn't want to do that, she doesn't have to. She could just as easily go to sleep. Her husband can mix up a bottle of formula, feed it to the baby, and in the morning, she could go back to her daytime feedings. I also wanted to add that her husband is not going to get woke unless she wakes him up.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you want to record a question or a comment for a future show, please give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. Be sure to read Savage Love, my weekly syndicated sex advice column in The Dig in Boston and in newspapers all across the country. And be sure to catch Hump, my amateur porn film festival, which is coming to San Francisco this weekend, July 11th through 14th, and then going to Columbus, Pittsburgh, Eugene, Los Angeles, Albuquerque, Madison, Chicago, Washington, and other places. Go to humpfilmfest.com for tickets and more info, including info on how you can make and submit a film to Hump. And if you just can't get enough of me running my mouth about politics, you should be listening to Blabbermouth, the Strangers Weekly Politics podcast, hosted by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Eli Sanders. Follow me on Twitter at FakeDanSavage. Follow AMP on Twitter at pup_AMP. And speaking of Twitter, Michael Ducker tweets, Alexa turned me on to podcast. AirPods finally make them usable for my commute. Which one should I listen to? Adam Singer replied, the Savage Lovecast and Hardcore History. Thank you, Adam, for the shout out, and thank you for putting me in such great company. I'm a huge fan of Hardcore History. Particularly love the series he did on the First World War. Everyone should be listening to Hardcore History, of course. Savage Lovecast, which we're listening to right now. Speaking of the Savage Lovecast, it's produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We will all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thank you.